welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important debate. Today we'll be speaking about the Egyptian strategy to maintain the water security, or Egypt's water security, and Egypt's rapidly expanding population, plus of course the intensive agricultural activity and project. This has made the sustainability of water resources a challenge in itself. The geopolitical issue of the Zeid has added to this or the list of the domestic challenges regarding the sustainability of the nation's water. Population growth, we have seen the population rise from the 1990s, or the start of the 1990s, till now by 40%. Literally 40%, and is expected to exceed 110 million people in 2025. Last year, the government has launched a strategy that aims at finding sustainable solutions to the water challenges, and has recently taken steps to answer these challenges. So, in April 2019, the Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation, Mohammed Abdelati, presented Egypt's 2017-2037 national plan to tackle the issue of water scarcity. The strategy is based on several pillars: the improvement of water quality, rationalizing water usage, and providing a productive environment in which the state agencies can coordinate with international partners. We'll be speaking and highlighting this issue tonight with our dear guest, Dr. Khaled Abu Zeid, Director of Water Resources at the Center for Environment and Development for the Arab region and Europe. Sidar, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Before we delve into our discussion, let's first have this quick report. And Egypt faces unjustified intransigence from Ethiopia over Zeid. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's statements during the trilateral summit between him, the Greek Prime Minister, and the Cyprus President. Let's watch.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said that Egypt seeks to reach a just solution to the issue of the Ethiopian dam against intransigence from Ethiopia. This came during President el-Sisi's speech at the tripartite summit between Cyprus, Egypt and Greece, held in the Greek capital Athens in the presence of the Prime Minister of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, and the President of Cyprus, Nikos Anastasiades. The head of state stressed Egypt's high priority of water security and its country's rights in the waters of the Nile River, as this is a crucial issue that requires all possible efforts to reach a binding legal agreement on the rules for filling and operating the contentious dam. The UN Security Council issued a statement in mid-September on the Gerd dispute, encouraging Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan to resume negotiations under the President of the African Union to finalize a binding legal agreement at last. In October, an official Sudanese diplomatic source said that the Democratic Republic of Congo, the President of the African Union and sponsor of Gerd negotiations between Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia, have yet to set a date for the resumption of negotiations. Minister of Irrigation and Water Resources Mohammed Abdelati called for a specific timetable with the presence of international observers regarding negotiations on the rules for filling and operating Gerd. Egypt and Sudan say they want a legally binding agreement, while Ethiopia says any pact should be advisory. Egypt and Sudan consider the dam a threat to their vital water supplies, while Ethiopia considers it essential for development and doubling its electricity production. The downstream nations fear possible blows to water facilities, agricultural land, and overall availability of Nile water. Negotiations over the dam between Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan have stalled for years, with the three parties ultimately failing to reach any agreements. The disputed dam is the largest hydroelectric project in Africa, with a cost of more than $4 billion.
Right, welcome back, and let me again welcome our guest, Dr. Khaled Abu Zeid, Director of Water Resources at the Center for Environment and Development for the Arab region and Europe. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is all ours. If we start with the report that we have just seen, and we have seen President Sisi speaking during his tripartite summit that took place in Greece a few days ago, and along with the Greek Prime Minister and the Cypriot President, where he spoke or he addressed this part of, or part of his statements addressed this particular issue. You're reading to the statements of the President.
Well, it is obvious that the President of Egypt is informing the international community in every event that Egypt is willing to have and looking forward to have a binding agreement on the filling and the operation of the Ethiopian dam. It is very clear in every speech, in every statement, so that the international community would realize that this is serious, and having a binding agreement on that dam is very important, and that the Nile waters provide the livelihood for Egypt. It is the only source of renewable water resources for Egypt. Egypt is a very arid, hyper-arid country. It doesn't receive almost any rainfall that
yes.
could be utilized for the Egyptian water requirements and water needs. And this is the only source of renewable water that the people depend on.
87%?
About 97% of the renewable
right, I'm sorry,
water.
97%.
And Egypt is even reusing and recycling this water several times to fulfill its needs, in addition to the other investments that are made in desalinating seawater, and also in importing some of the food which is almost in its virtual water content equal to Egypt's share from the Nile. So
we'll be speaking
about
those points. We'll be speaking about those points. But here the President addressed a very important issue, which is an agreement. We've always called for an agreement that is a binding one for all parties, since we need to see a real political will, and that goes with the interest of the three countries. How far or how did Egypt address this issue throughout years of negotiations up till this minute?
Well, despite the fact that Ethiopia has launched the construction of this dam without any consultation
unilateral
with Egypt and Sudan,
action, as usual,
in a unilateral action. However, in 2015, the three countries sat together and signed an agreement which is called the Declaration of Principles Agreement on the GERD, or on the Ethiopian dam, which has 10 articles. And in essence, this agreement calls for a more detailed agreement on, mainly on the filling and the operation of the dam. So in 2015, the three countries agreed to having this agreement. However, since then until now, there has been some procrastinations by Ethiopia mainly to reach an agreement. In fact, in early 2020, an agreement was almost reached and was drafted when the United States and the World Bank was mediating and was holding 6 meetings between the three countries to reach an agreement and to draft an agreement. And the agreement was actually drafted after several meetings, almost 5 to 6 meetings, and this agreement was in a way fulfilling the needs and the requirements of the three countries. Technical and legal experts were involved. But in the last meeting, Ethiopia did not attend. And out of goodwill, Egypt has initialized the agreement to prove to the world that it is looking forward to a cooperative agreement that would meet the needs and requirements for development for Ethiopia, and in the meantime protects the water rights of Egypt and Sudan.
Actually, Egypt has, from the very beginning till the very last, has not just proved, but rather gave all the good gestures that could exist in the whole world to prove that it really is with a solution that goes in the interest of all parties here. Let me here go to how the head of state stressed Egypt's high priority of water security at large. As I mentioned, the Nile is one of the main water security and national security issues for Egypt. It is the main source for national security and for water security. And protecting Egypt's water rights in the Nile is one of the main pillars. But on the other hand, there are other aspects of water security that Egypt is working on to meet the water requirements that is growing year by year, of course, because of the needs to develop and the increasing population and so forth. And let me highlight that Egypt, being a water scarce country, its per capita share of water is about now 550 or cubic meters per capita per year, which is below the water scarcity limit of 1,000 cubic meters per capita per year of renewable water resources. So being a water scarce because
country,
the normal one is how much?
1,000 cubic meters
this is the least,
per capita
the
per year is the water scarcity limit.
Okay.
If a country is below that, then it's considered a water scarce country. And if it's below 500 cubic meters per year, it's a severe water scarce country, and Egypt will reach that in a couple of years with the increasing population, because you divide the available renewable water resources, which is mainly coming from the Nile, by the population. So as the population increases, the needs for agriculture, for food, for drinking water, and for industrial water, and for all other water consumptive activities, it needs this much of water. This is reflected also in its need to fill that gap. And filling this gap is either by finding what we call non-conventional water resources, or importing some of the needs that cannot be developed locally or nationally with the available shortage of water resources.
I tried to stress on this point just to elaborate or to explain why in each international forum or in any summit or meeting, the president always takes in the forefront or puts the issue of the water security part of his statements, and why he wants to understand or to make the world understand the challenge, no, actually the threat that we are speaking about. So thank you very much for elaborating on this issue, showing to which extent we are speaking about a matter of life and death.
Exactly.
Getting back to the unconventional methods of how Egypt, and here I'll get first to this issue or this Cairo Water Week that would be taking place on October 24th
Next
till
week,
28th. Yes, next week. So we need to understand more details about this week, and we need to understand what is the Cairo Water Week. This is the 4th edition, so we need to understand the previous 3, what they were all about. Tell us more about this.
Well, it's this week is mainly to discuss and present the activities in the water sector, not just in Egypt, but it's also an opportunity for international experts to share their experience also here in Cairo on water conservation techniques, water technologies, new water technologies, discuss also international transboundary water matters such as the Nile and other transboundary river cases where countries can share their experience and learn from one another, but also at the meantime, because of being in Cairo, discussing some of the Egyptian water issues and matters, and sharing the activities that are done in the water sector in Egypt, and informing the different sectors of the activities that's taking place, and the progress that is made in water savings, water conservation, recycling and reuse of water, and finding non-conventional water resources, and development of non-conventional water resources, and developing plans and strategies for the future. And also looking at the impacts of climate change and population increase, and upstream developments on transboundary rivers, several things in this matter.
From your point of view, do you think that this is a platform for regional, continental, and even international partners in order to be able to exchange how they can benefit from each other partnership?
Yeah, to an extent. Of course, it discusses maybe more of the Egyptian water-related issues. There are other regional and international fora that discuss regional and international water-related matters. But now Cairo Water Week is becoming also an international kind of event, because it brings in international organizations and other experts from around the world who come and share their experience. So it's now becoming a platform also that is good for sharing some international experience as well.
Yes. Why I said so, because to my understanding that this week comes in parallel to the UN conference on midterm comprehensive review of implementation of the objects of the International Decades for Action, due in March 2023. And this is a preparation to such a big conference. If I may ask, how timely and significant would be this, or this 4th edition of this Cairo Water Week, and how Egypt prepared this time for such a week?
Well, of course, this the Cairo Water Week is mainly organized by the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in Egypt, and they have been preparing for this Cairo Water Week since last Cairo Water Week. It takes a lot of time to prepare for such an event, almost a year for each event, and this is how frequent the Cairo Water Week has been organized now every week for the last 4 years. They have, of course, technical and scientific committees that sits and invites different organizations to organize their events. There are several parallel activities that are taking place during the Cairo Water Week. As you mentioned, the preparation for the water decade, and this is to monitor how the Sustainable Development Goals, especially the one that is related to water, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 6. You know, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the heads of states have agreed to reach by 2030. And one of these 17 goals is the goal number 6, which is related to water. And under this goal number 6, there are maybe 12 different targets and with specific indicators. Some of them are on water supply and sanitation, some of them on wastewater treatment and recycling and reuse, some of them on integrated water resources management at the national level and on the transboundary river basin levels. Some of them on protecting ecosystems and the quality of water and improving the quality of water. So the Cairo Water Week is going to also make use of that time and have a high-level meeting for the preparation for the water, what they call the water decade, which is like 10 years since the beginning of the SDGs, which was in 2015. So this is called the midterm review, which is 5 years down the road, so after the signature of on the initiation of these sustainable development goals. So it's really a great effort that is being made to prepare for such an event.
Dr. Khaled, that brings me to ask you about the Egyptian role in the continent within the framework of water and food security, because part of the SDGs, the UN SDGs, plus of course the African Agenda of Sustainable Development for 2063, part of the Egyptian Vision 2030 for Sustainable Development, Egypt has always addressed the issue of food and water security, not just from the Egyptian perspective or for Egypt, but rather for the whole continent at large, and has been addressing this in several African meetings and summits. Would you shed light on Egypt's role in this particular issue and how Egypt has been working on the issue of food and water security regionally and continentally?
Well, Egypt is, of course, part of the African Ministers' Council on Water, which is the water arm of the African Union. In fact, we in Sidari are the secretariat for the the North African region, under the AMCAO, they call it the African Ministers' Council on Water. It is divided into 5 regions, and Egypt, being part of the North Africa, is in charge of. I mean, the secretariat is with Sidari, but now I think that Egypt is also going to chair the AMCAO in the next couple of years, for the next couple of years, as it is rotating among the 5 different regions. And this area, of course, Egypt would have a role to play in developing the water and sanitation sector in the continent as a whole. We don't want to forget also the efforts that were made during Egypt's presidency of the African Union, and its efforts in not only in the water and food security issues, but in other developmental and other security issues also in Africa, and the training that was done for a lot of African brothers and sisters here in Egypt who came and participated in several training programs under this African leadership program that was led by Egypt under its presidency of the African Union. In food security, of course, Egypt is a lead country in agriculture development and increasing agriculture productivity, and there are a lot of opportunities and potential for achieving water and food security in Africa. Africa as a whole, although North Africa is a water scarce region, but the rest of Africa is a water abundant region. And there hasn't been much attention given to rain-fed agriculture for food production. And some of the advocacy programs could be promoting the increase of productivity in agriculture under rain-fed agriculture. It's not given much attention. This could actually relieve the stresses and the conflicts on transboundary rivers, because rain-fed agriculture will depend mainly on rain-fed. It will use a lot of what we call the green water, which is used directly for rain-fed agriculture and for livestock production. Africa is a great nation in livestock production, and it could really benefit from improving the grazing lands, the rain-fed grazing lands and pasture lands, making use of the groundwater, the untapped resource of groundwater that is renewable in most of Africa. Here in Egypt and in North Africa, most of the groundwater is non-renewable because it's in the middle of the desert. It's just there from the rainy era, thousands of years ago. But in sub-Saharan Africa and in southern Africa, in western Africa, in eastern Africa, a lot of the groundwater is really renewable. And it could provide a very good source for not only drinking water, but also for agriculture to compensate for the non-rainy seasons in some parts of Africa. This we call the supplemental irrigation by groundwater for agriculture purposes during the non-rainy seasons. And in the rainy seasons, rain-fed agriculture would be the solution. So in years of droughts, for instance, when there is no rain as much as needed, also groundwater could play a very significant role for food production and agriculture in these areas. And this is, I think, areas where food security could be achieved, and looking at the comparative advantages between several countries where each crop could be best cultivated, where there is an abundance of water and a good climate for that particular crop, and other countries where it may be suitable for other agricultural crops.
Here you're addressing a continent that can deal in the very peaceful way, and that needs lots and lots of effort to end inter-conflicts and to end disputes and to end many things, so as to be able to cultivate crops and exchange cultivating crops in each other lands in a way that used to be during the history. I mean, here I'm speaking here about the old Egyptians, the pharaonic times.
Yes.
When that was really the case, who needs what, and we exchange this benefit, hopefully. And this is why, when you mentioned here the abundant water, indeed, there are countries who have plenty of water, excess of water, but those waters are usually lost. They are not used in the best way. And there are countries who lack water resources, or they're depleting, they have depleting water resources, as the North Africa, as you said. And here came the issue of what I was speaking about, how Egypt can play a role in coordinating between countries this usage of water, and how all countries together can deal in a way that can be a win-win situation for all countries. Please.
Yes, indeed. there is an opportunity that's coming, I think, with Egypt's chairmanship of the African Ministers' Council on Water to work on promoting these ideas and on promoting the idea of exchange of benefits from water. People are now talking about sharing benefits from water rather than just sharing water itself. So we're looking at beyond the river, beyond the water body, what other benefits beyond the water countries could make use of, and how can we best utilize the comparative advantage of each country, of each region in its utilization of water and other resources as well, and for achieving food security and fighting hunger, which is also one of the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals that were agreed upon in 2015 to reach by 2030, ending hunger in the world.
Well, you know, Dr. Khaled, this is not just SDG goals that are put by the World Organization and leaders. This is the dream of nations, particularly the African nations who have been suffering a lot. Exactly. Before I go on with our discussion, let me take this report and Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli to deliver words in senior session during Cairo Water Week. Let's watch.
Irrigation Minister Mohammed Abdulati said that Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli will deliver on Sunday a word to the UN conference on the midterm comprehensive review of the implementation of the objectives of the International Decade for Action 2023, adding that this comes as part of the 4th Cairo Water Week due on October 24th till the 28th. In a statement, Abdulati said that a galaxy of ministers and representatives of international and UN institutions will participate in this high-level general session. The session is one of the most important preparations for the UN conference on the midterm comprehensive review of the implementation of the objectives of the International Decade for Action due March 2023. Abdulati said that Egypt is working on pushing forward the international efforts aiming at facing the water challenges to achieve regional stability. Cairo Water Week is considered one of the biggest water-related events at the national, regional, and international levels. It is an annual event of the Ministry of Resources and Irrigation under the patronage of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in collaboration with national, regional, and international partners. This important event will be held at an important time when the state is paying great attention to the file of water and placing it at the top of the political agenda. Water is vital for sustainable economic and social development. The CWW also emanates from Egypt's pivotal regional role in the Arab and African regions.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Khaled. And water is part and partial of this vision, or for any future vision for sustainable development, for economic sustainability, for social development, and from every aspect. And hence, Egypt has been putting a strategy in order to confront some of the challenges. Let me take here your reading to how Egypt see the challenges, or what kind of challenges that really Egypt is in trying to put this strategy.
Well, of course, the challenge is that Egypt, being a water-scarce country and with the developmental needs every year, which is increasing year by year due to the increasing water demand, there has to be a strategy, of course, or a plan to meet these challenges. You have also external challenges that are affecting development. There are not only the limitation of water, which water is a limiting factor for development, but also some external factors such as climate change, for instance. We don't know what climate change will bring to the external water resources that are coming to Egypt. When we talk about climate change impacts on Egypt, on the water sector in Egypt, we have to look at climate change impacts outside Egypt, because the Nile comes from outside Egypt. So this is also another challenge in addressing the issue of climate change. You have to look at the climate change impacts on the upper Nile countries to know how would be the effect on the Nile waters that are coming to Egypt. But also climate change impacts on Egypt itself is also another external challenge, because this will, if with the increased temperature, for instance, there will be an increased demand for water, where there will be more evaporation, more evapotranspiration from the plants. So we will need more water for the existing plants even. You will need to look at different crops that stand high temperature, less water, increased salinity. So these challenges, plus also the challenge, of course, of upstream activities and developments that may be affecting waters coming to Egypt and protecting these waters that are coming. So it's really a combination of several challenges, adding to that also the high intensity of population areas, what may any activity using water bring as pollution to the water resources, or factors that may be affecting the water quality. So all these are different challenges that the country has to face, and that's why Egypt has been working on developing a long-term plan, which is a 20-year plan. There has been a plan before until 2017, and now there is another 20-year plan from 2017 until 2037.
Indeed.
And this plan, of course, addresses four main axes, four pillars. The first one is to how to work on water conservation and water savings, and to work on improving water quality, and on developing new water resources, mainly non-conventional water resources, and to work on the development of the enabling environment for all the management of the water resources that is needed, including the legal system for managing water, the legislations, the laws, the public awareness that is needed for the people and the public to manage water differently, and to conserve water, and to protect water from pollution and other things.
Indeed, here this 20-year term strategy that was put here by the Ministry of Irrigation Water Resources has put some answers to how we can confront the challenges, as you said, respectively here. If we may here divide the pillars of this strategy so we can understand what measures has Egypt taken in every pillar concerning this strategy. So if we start with the first pillar, as you said, how to rationalize water usage, or even create non-conventional resources. Tell us more about this.
Well, if we talk about the first pillar, which is water conservation and water savings, Egypt has now embarked on a large program of irrigation improvement and irrigation modernization, where it is possible to switch from surface irrigation to drip irrigation and modern irrigation systems, sprinkler irrigation, because each land and each area and each region is very specific, and it has its specificities in what kind of modern irrigation system could be used. And Egypt has now worked on improving on a plan to modernize this irrigation system. Even improved surface irrigation systems, because the modernization could also include the what we call improved surface irrigation. Not every surface irrigation is water consumptive, or it could also be an improved irrigation system that is surface irrigation. Also lining canals in areas where the seepage is in large amounts from the canals, where the surrounding soils of the canals are the type of very porous media that you would lose the water, because some areas the canals are in a sandy area or in a clay area. So it's different. The seepage from the canals that are in a sandy area are more than wet when they are in a clay area. And also the shapes, the reshaping of the canals, because with the time, along the years, the exact shape of the designed canal has changed with time, and this is not helpful in conveying the water to the farm.
Dr. Khaled, this very particular point that we are speaking about for lining the canals, as we said before getting into this discussion, because I need to understand, or I need to clarify or to tell our audience here in numbers, how is such a project really is one of the projects that are really made to for conserving the water and to protect or even to make a better use for the water and not lose much water, please. In numbers,
yeah, the
so
term,
people would understand.
Yes, exactly. The term better use is very important, what you just mentioned here, because we have to know that water is in a closed system, especially in the Egyptian context. And when water seeps from a canal, for instance, it goes to groundwater. But this groundwater may be used by another farmer somewhere for supplementing their irrigation, because water may not be enough for their irrigation needs, and they may be using this water from the groundwater for their needs. But if it's in excess, and this water goes to a farm and it's in excess because they are not using modern irrigation, or they are over irrigating in one of the farms upstream and taking the water from the downstream users, the excess water goes to the drain, to the agriculture drain. And this agriculture drain would be including water with high salinity and maybe some disposals of other wastewater that goes into these drains. And Egypt has been recycling and reusing its agriculture drainage. So
we're speaking about rationalizing the use of
food. Rationalizing the use, but we have to put in mind that if you increase the lining, you will be decreasing the water that goes to the drains that is actually recycled and reused for other uses. But it will bring water, it will make available more water of a cleaner quality. So it's overall, if you look at the overall system, you may be using every drop of water. Egypt is actually one of the countries that has the highest overall water use efficiency, because whatever is lost from the farm is recycled and reused in another farm or in another agriculture area. But maybe the quality of the water that goes and is being recycled is of less quality than the original fresh water. So if we achieve an overall better quality water, where instead of water going to the drains and then recycled and reused, from the beginning we reduce the water that is that goes to the farm in excess of what is needed, and use the fresh water directly to the other farms, this will provide an overall better quality and better use of the water as a whole. So you save water from one area, you save clean water from one area, and provide clean water to other areas where they may have been using recycled, poor or less quality water. So in addition to a little bit of conservation in an overall system, but the improved water quality is even more important, because this increases the production of water and the agriculture production.
Yes, and it gives us the chance for fresh water also to go directly to the citizen in the best way, right?
Yes, of course, because some of these canals and irrigation systems are also conveying water for drinking purposes somewhere, especially where there are the large canals. They are conveying water for irrigation and also for drinking purposes.
Indeed. Because I have 2 minutes left for me here, but here I need to address the non-conventional ways, which is the desalination, because lots of desalination plants and projects have been made. Tell me briefly about this.
One decision has been made now that all the coastal cities on the Mediterranean, on the Red Sea, are from now on going to depend on desalinated water. And this will provide water for public, for domestic use, for industrial use in the coastal cities, and will conserve some of the Nile water to be used internally in the inland cities that are far from the sea, far from the Mediterranean, with the increasing population and increasing water needs and increasing urbanization in the whole of Egypt. You will need to get into desalination and increase desalination with time. So the best place is where its coastal cities are. And that way you could conserve some of the fresh water for the inland cities and the other areas. And the other, of course, non-conventional water is the treated wastewater and the treated agriculture drains. And Egypt now is embarking on 3 major, they are already launched, the Mahsama agriculture drainage plant, the Bahr al-Baqar agricultural drainage plant, and the new Delta agriculture drainage plant, which is going to be the huge, and they are all entering the Guinness records because of their huge amount of treatment and investments.
We opened a very important topic at the end, and I'm sorry, but our time has run out, and we need to discuss this very particular issue. So there will be another episode concerning this issue. Our conversation is always very rich. Dr. Khaled and Dr. Khaled Abu Zeid, Director of Water Resources at the Center for Environment and Development for the Arab region and Europe. Sidar, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Next episode will be on Sunday. So until then, it's good night.